Module 17, Hacking Mobile Platforms. Let's have a look at what we're going to discuss in this module. 5 areas for mobile platforms. Number 1, we're going to be looking at the attack vectors for mobile platforms. Then I'm going to take a little exploration of Android in number 2, and then in section 3, we're going to jump on over into iOS. And then we're going to look at management solutions, including MDM, and then some security guidelines. Here in learning objective number 1, we're going to go into an explanation of mobile attack vectors. Let's have a look. All right, if we look at this section here, we have app stores, websites, corporate internet, VPN gateways, the internet. It's kind of small here in this drawing. Wi-Fi devices, telco, mobile devices of various types, and Bluetooth enabled, and every one of these little things that looks like a virus is a vulnerable area. So what we're seeing is, yeah, you have a business environment and you have a lot of vulnerabilities. In fact, if you look at the OWASP top 10 for 2024, we have credential issues, supply chain issues, authentication authorization issues, IO issues, COM issues, privacy and binary protections, and misconfigurations and storage issues and insufficient cryptography. I mean, these are a lot. Each one of these really is a lot in and of its own category. And if you look at one of these devices, I have one right here. I think I'll quickly take a phone call. No, I'm not taking a phone call, but what does this device give me access to? This device gives me a browser. And everything we talk about with hacking browsers, from I think one of the last attacks we talked about was a marionette attack, to many other things, can apply to this mobile device. I can get texts on this device, and they can try to get me to click on things. I can download apps from the App Store. I can get on a Wi-Fi network. This is connected to a Wi-Fi network, in fact, right now. And that, whatever the stuff we talked about with Wi-Fi just in the previous module, again, we have that possibility, including even BGP hijacking. And then we go over to the fact that my web browser on the device is connected to a web server, and we have a database, we have SQLIs, and we talked about before when we were talking about SQL injection. There's just a huge, wide range of attacks that can happen against a mobile platform. So the security issues would be, number 1, we have a large number of apps that we can get from different app stores, and they may not be appropriately vetted, especially when we go outside of the normal app stores, especially for stuff like Android. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I might have malware distributed on that app. Also, there's a lot of social engineering that can be used with mobile devices that can really cause problems in more ways than one. And then malicious apps can damage other applications. We'll talk about that attack in just a little bit in a few moments here. So what is supposed to happen is, on my phone, I am not a root user. I am not the administrator. I'm sort of like a super-ish user. I can do quite a lot with the phone, but I don't have full control over it. And every app that runs stays in a sandbox, so that how they access system resources and data is mediated and controlled by the sandbox. However, I myself can write an app that busts out of that sandbox, and given time, so could you. And so there are problems sometimes with that sandbox environment. So that can be another issue with phones. Let's talk about some attacks. One of them is smishing. This is, I think, everybody's pretty familiar with smishing. This is just when you get sent texts with instructions or links or alerts or so on, and they're fake to try to get you to click on that link or to follow or make that phone call or whatever. Another one is pairing with Bluetooth. So here's how this works. Let's say that Larry in the accounting department. It's always the accounting department. I don't know why. It's just what I come up with. Larry in the accounting department is told, Larry, we need a document handling machine. And what we want you to do is contact the big document management company and get us one of those machines. So Larry says, okay, I've never done this before, but hey, it seems like it's better than sitting here with these actuarial tables. So he works on it. He finally finds the big document management company. They come over and they sell them a $50,000 document management platform that does copies, and it interfaces with other apps, and it creates books, and it has a module that'll even do your dishes. It's great. So it gets installed. The sales guy says, hey, I want to tell you something, Larry. And he takes out his phone and says, there's Bluetooth on this thing. And there's an app that you can run on your phone. You can manage it from your phone or from a tablet. And Larry's like, you know what? We already have all the functionality we need. It's good. I don't need any more sales. Have a great day. And the sales guy says, great. I got my 50 grand. I'm okay. And he leaves. And meanwhile, maybe Larry, nobody else knew that he left the Bluetooth on that document management device. And so an attacker scanning for Bluetooth using BTViewer or some other tool sees that this is open, and they're able to jump from that device into the rest of the network. Or they're able to turn on device options on that copier and do hacking from there. Or on any Bluetooth device, you can do Bluetooth attacks like blue bugging and blue snarfing and so on, turning on cameras and so on. So there's a lot that can happen with Bluetooth. Another one is Agent Smith. Agent Smith is in The Matrix. Hey, did you watch The Matrix when it first came out? When it was a big mystery as to what it was all about. That was actually a pretty cool movie when that happened. But in the second movie, we find Agent Smith. And what did Agent Smith do? He stuck his hand into somebody in the Matrix. I got an AI to draw this for me. And in this case, he's doing it with software, right? He's putting his hand into software. I was trying to get it to draw it correctly, but this is not too bad. He sticks his hand into the software, and in the Matrix, the person turns into a copy of Agent Smith. But in this Agent Smith attack, what happens is the software that you've got already installed on your phone, you install a bad app that's infected, and it starts to take over the rest of your apps, and they turn into bad apps also. Agent Smith touching those apps. So anyway, that's an Agent Smith attack. You'll find it like replacing things like WhatsApp and Share It and MX Player and stuff like that. There's also the SS7 vulnerability. The SS7 protocol was invented in 2025. Wait, what's that? Oh, sorry, 1975. 1975, that was a long time ago. So you can imagine that this old protocol that's used based upon mutual trust is extremely hackable. And what somebody can do is they can intercept calls and text messages if you have a device running SS7. It's one of those old protocols that has made it into modern day. We also have the idea of a SIMjacker attack. There's this little thing called the SAT browser, S@T browser. And on some SIM cards, it'll be pre-installed. And it's useful for a variety of things. But either way, what they do is they can exploit that to do all kinds of attacks, from DOS attacks to making malicious websites pop up. Another one is call spoofing. This one can be very, very difficult to tell that it's an issue because it looks like it's coming from somewhere genuine. So what happens is the attacker manipulates the caller ID that they find, and they use this to make it look like it's coming from a trusted source. One is called spoof card. You can use a virtual number to make calls, and there are other fake calls, SpoofTel, and others that you can use. This is just a look at the user interface, the UI spoof card. Very interesting app. Yet another one is OTP. OTP is actually very interesting. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to module 20, where we talk more about cryptography. OTP really came into its own around World War II in Bletchley Park, England. There's a lot that came out of that time that really is responsible for where we are computationally today. But what would happen is spies would actually take these one-time codes and these one-time pads, and they could translate messages that were sent to them based upon these, and then burn the one-time code. And if you could capture a notebook or whatever, there's lots of intrigue behind how these things happen. But now it's electronics, digital, one-time codes, one-time pads. And so what they do is they hijack it and then they redirect it to their own device using mainly social engineering, but also SMS jacking and SIM jacking attacks. And then from there, what they're able to do is to log in to all of their online accounts that require that OTP. One of the nice little tools for that is called ADD phishing, a nice little social media phishing tool to help attackers bypass 2FA and OTP. Over here, we look at another one called a camera microphone capture attack, otherwise called camfecting. And so what they're trying to do is capture your webcam. Normally, you're going to have to get a rat to make this happen. Do you know a lot of these types of attacks that we're talking about, how they actually take place? You know what happens? And often it is an adversary of yours. And one of the most common adversaries is the X. It's the X. I remember I was talking to somebody about cell hacking, and the person told me, I have a friend that has questions about that. And it was about a month later, he actually brought the friend to talk to me. And so I explained to him what often will happen is you have a phone and your ex will get a hold of it. And all of a sudden his eyes got big because I didn't know the guy's name. And he started nodding his head, and then they will install something on it. This is what that is, the remote access Trojan. And he starts nodding his head. And I told him all the different types of, and he's like, how did you know? This is actually how it works. Somebody gets a hold of your device, or you leave your device and it doesn't have a login screen and they're able to put stuff on it. And then other ways, of course, getting that rat to you is an unupdated, unprotected phone, clicking on a link somewhere, right? But the easiest way to do it is to just get the phone, put that rat on there, and then you can control the camera. You can control many things depending on the type of rat that is. Maybe record videos, stuff like that. In this case, we're talking specifically about camfecting, and that's the type of rat that you would use. Another one would be Android camera hijack. So if you look at the camera subsystems of the Android, the applications have these storage permissions, and in the subsystem Android.permission camera, Android permission record audio, Android permission access course location, all that kind of stuff. And so what happens is if the attacker gets a hold of it where they can actually modify those permissions, then what will happen is they'll be able to turn on the camera, etc. So in this case, they're lured into doing what? Downloading that malicious application. And then there's a vulnerability in one of these subsystems. And then the attacker can gain access to the camera or other features of that Android phone. And over here we have Stormbreaker. This gives access to webcam, microphone, location, but without requesting permissions. We're in learning objective number 2. And here in learning objective number 2, we're going to look specifically at Android and various threats for and to Androids. Let's have a look. So Android is pretty cool. Apple was the first one to the market with a well-known smartphone with a really nice UI and so on. But Android was right behind them, and they came out with extremely good operating system. And if you look at this, if look at all the different layers, right? We have starting with the top layer here, where we have our apps, and we go down to the Java API framework, and then from there we have our libraries, or where we have WebKits, OpenMax AL, and many other things, and hardware abstraction or HEL, and then the kernel above that. I suspect that both the architecture of the Android operating system and the architecture of the iOS for Apple phones is going to be changing. And at the right above the hardware abstraction layer, there's going to be an insert for artificial intelligence, because a lot of phones are going to be selling with NLP chips on them, so neural language processing chips that help make things go faster. And I suspect that eventually there'll be a firmware chip that has a small, local, highly optimized LLM on it, so that it'll do the local processing for conversational voice commands on the phone. So I think this is going to change in the near future as we take things like MPEG-4 and H.264 and MP3 and AAC, and we add in specifications for AI. That's going to be on all phones eventually. All right, so let's have a look at the API. This is actually really cool. Phones have amazing APIs. Android has a wonderful API. If you want to manage the phone, you want to manage passwords, want to manage locking the phone, want to manage storage, encryption, and many other things. Yeah, that's all in the phone. In fact, you can look here. This is just looking at the device admin on the phone. So very well managed capabilities on Android phones. Do you have an Android? Do you do Android, or do you do iPhone? What do you do? I find that usually, like, families will do the same phones. And then, of course, there'll be the rebel of the family who gets the other vendor's phone. Can't believe her. What is she doing with that phone? But it's very interesting. Also, if you look worldwide, the United States, America, we have a lot of iPhones, and that's actually slightly bigger than Android. But if you go worldwide, most of the world is slightly more on the Android side than on the iPhone side. If you want full admin root control of your Android, then you will want to root your Android. Why? Why would I root an Android? So if you have an Android, or if you have an Apple iPhone, still do this. Open up a tab and go to the Play Store. Go to the Play Store, and just type in Play Store, and then sort by apps in the Play Store, because you have to make sure you're looking at apps. And then in the apps Play Store, type in the keyword for search, root, R-O-O-T, hit enter. And as you scroll, you'll find that there are apps that will do root checkers. They'll check to see if you have root on the phone. But you'll also find some apps that require root in order to run on the phone. And so right there in the Play Store, there are many apps that require you to be rooted to run. Why would they do this? Because they're looking at the low-level functions of the phone, and they're providing you some capabilities that you wouldn't otherwise have if you didn't root it. Now, rooting and jailbreaking used to be a lot more popular, but both on the Android side and on the iPhone side, both organizations have given us a lot more access to a lot more capability, so there's a lot less need to root. So why would I want to root my Android? Here's an answer that you might appreciate. To create your own hack phone. You want a hacker phone? Root it, because there's stuff that you cannot run and do hacking on an Android without root. And there are some really cool rooting tools, and the king of root is still Kingo Root. King of Root. Yeah, Kingo Root. So it's a nice little tool. You can find it You don't have to have, if you want to root without using KinkoRoot, you can. There are many different ways of rooting without it, but it's a very good one. Another thing to keep in mind is depending on the vendor for your Android, sometimes, yeah, KinkoRoot will work, but another rooting program might work a little bit better. So you'll want to do a little bit of research for your Android device. Another tool, by the way, KinkoRoot, one-click root, these both work very well still. And so it's a nice little one that will help you with one click. What's the click? Root now. And it'll go through and root your device. And then when it reboots, you'll be rooted. And then there are others here, iRoot, all the way to TunesGo and RootMaster. There are a lot of rooting tools for Android. But again, check your vendor and see what they recommend for rooting that device. And also there are various levels of rooting for an Android, not so sophisticated as they are for iPhones, but definitely there are some different levels. So check with your vendor. All right, once you root your phone, you have access to an array of tools and capabilities on your hack phone that the ordinary mortals of the planet Earth have no access to. And one of those would be Drozer. What is it going to do? It'll actually help you discover surface area vulnerabilities. They give you the steps of running through here, getting package information, and finding the surface area. So that's one. Drozer, nice little tool for rooting. Another one is you might want to bypass, and this is another thing I was talking about with the vendor. Some Android phones have FRP. They have factory reset protection, and you just might want it to go very low in that root. And so if you want to bypass that on your device, then one of them is for you key is how it's pronounced. And so what you do is you go to the for you key, connect the device to your computer, click on Remove Google Lock, FRP, and then you select the OS, hit the Start button, follow the on-screen instructions, and bada boom, you've gotten past the FRP. So that's actually useful for phones that have that reset protection. Other things too, right here, Zianti. If you look down here, this little white print, Zimperium. They have some really cool tools, especially for your phone. This one is called Zianti, and it gives you the ability to do attacks like Mac spoofing and Wi-Fi hotspot and hijacking. And then over here, Kali NetHunter. This is not just a single app. This is the Kali or Parrot security Linux for your phone. I mean, if you look here, we have different services, commands, Mac Changer, and many others. So you can do things like bad USB attacks and many. There's just a lot you can do. So you can install NetHunter. There's a non-root and a better version would be the rooted version. And if you are managing phones, or you have a phone that you want to work on that you can connect to your network, then you can use PhoneSploit Pro. If you look at the commands here, connect to a device, list all connected, disconnect, scan, mirror a device, right? Get a screenshot, record the screen, run an app, install an APK or uninstall an APK, list your apps. Oh, look at this, number 15. Hack device. Yeah, let's choose number 15. All right. So you have all of those available, and it uses TCP port 5555, and you can use it to do all kinds of attacks, screen capturing, port forwarding, installing new software, like you see all this here. PhoneSploit is cool. You'll see this in the lab. The next thing we have is an MITD attack. All right, so you are talking with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, what size SD card do you have in your phone?" And you say, "I have 64 gigs. It's almost full." And he says, "Hey, I have a 1 terabyte SD card that you might just want for your phone. I buy a lot of these. This one, it's just extra." You're like, "Really? Yeah, cool." So you get the 1 terabyte SD card and you pop it into your phone. You are now the victim of a man in the disk attack. So this is for apps that don't properly use measures against the usage of the device external data. So what's going to happen here then is you're going to download a legitimate app, and then you might request an update. Oh, wait a minute. There's code staged in the internal storage. So when you accept it, that 1 terabyte SD, did you consider the dude had a hoodie on and a red skull and bone thing on his laptop? Think about who you accept these cards from. And anyway, now they can monitor everything and install malicious apps and so on. This is a man in the disk attack. Another one is a spear phone attack. A spear phone attack, if you think about what it is, it's a loudspeaker attack. Spearphone is loudspeaker. Loudspeaker is spearphone. So what they're doing is they're looking at the loudspeaker voice conversation. So here you have Ellis. Over here you have Bob. Bob is talking to Ellis. There's a loudspeaker. But Bob's phone, since he's using a loudspeaker, is generating vibrations. The attacker is tapping into the accelerometer of that device, measuring the vibrations, listening in on everything. I hate when that happens. The next one we see is that just like for every phase of hacking that we've talked about, the baby universe of hacking, Metasploit, has lots of tools for hacking phones. They have many different things. You can run an interpreter shell, get a dump SMS. You can do networking commands, sniffing commands, and exploits of running Metasploit. And then one of the things that we want to do in terms of Android hacking is analyzing it. So what do we find with analysis? What we want to do is we want to get system information. We want to find the behavior of the device, find vulnerabilities on the device. So we have multiple techniques to make this happen. One, we can pop up a shell on the device and interact through the shell. Another one is that we can enumerate the list of installed applications. This is one of the commands you could use, ABD shell PM list packages. Right over here, you can disassemble the target app with APK tool, or you can do an LSOF for list of open files, or you can use other tools for signing and installing malicious APK. So there are a lot of low-level commands that you can do to get information out of your Android device. Other techniques, advanced SMS phishing with a low-price USB modem to trick them into getting malicious settings, bypassing SSL pinning. SSL pinning is supposed to make sure you stay attached to the connection that you initiated. And so what they can do is reverse engineer or use hooking. We're talking about hooking before. That's at the app level. This is a way to take advantage of that app and allow you to get around it. Modifying source code, bypassing SSL pinning, man-in-the-middle attacks, and then tap and ghost attack. These are NFC attacks. I think if you were to see this on the exam, you would match up tap and ghost with NFC. And those RX, those transmit and receive electrodes that are used in capacitive touchscreens and mobile devices. So these are used to go grab that information. There is malware. Did you know that at least one phone, Android phone, has been affected by malware? I know. I'm shocked. Also, no, actually, there are all kinds of malware for Android and for iPhones too. Don't worry, iPhones will get their time in the attack sunlight pretty soon. So this is one called Mamont or Mamont, and what this is a nice little banking Trojan. What it does is looks like a nice little Chrome, a browser application. You install it, it's a Trojan. It asks you to grant permissions, like for sending and receiving photos and SMS messages, and then it gets phone numbers, it gets credit card numbers, it'll pop up a fake cash prize, etc. You know, one of my favorite apps to talk about in the Play Store, Android, and I haven't looked at this for at least 6 months, so maybe you can look at it for me. So if you go to the Play Store, like I just talked to you about before, and in the Play Store, we're not doing a search for a root. We're doing a search for flashlight. do a search for flashlight. And then you'll find all these flashlight apps. And if you take a little bit of time and look at the flashlight apps, I want you to ask yourself, okay, so when I turn on the flashlight on this device, what does it take to turn on a light? What does it take? All right, so I have to go into the Android subsystem and I have to tell it to take the light and turn it on if a button is pressed, and then take the light and turn it off if another button is pressed. How hard can that be? But you look at some of these apps and they are dozens of megabytes in size. And when you look at the permissions, over here, grant permissions, you look at the permissions that the flashlight app requires, it's pretty amazing. And what Android operating system doesn't have a swipe down and turn on the flashlight anyway? So what I'm saying is be careful with what you download, what you install in your Android, because sometimes they just require too much of you. So anyway, that's one of the pieces of malware. Then there are Android hacking tools. This one is called AndroRat. I think I smell a rat. Yes, it gives you full backdoor to the target device. And then it'll automatically stay there, persistent when you boot. This is showing you the AndroRat Pi that is running. The Ghost framework is another post-exploitation tool. If you look at some of the things, shut down device, uninstall device, show connected devices. This is a nice little framework. MSpy, HXP Photo Eye, and there are just many other tools that you can run on an Android. So you want to protect your Android. That's a pretty good thing. I remember something that used to happen a lot about 15 years ago. I play music and I've been in green rooms before, and musicians can play a lot of jokes and harass each other and so on. And what would happen is they would leave their phones on a table and then go on stage to do something. And then when they came back, they found they had like social media posts that they had no idea that their family's like, how could you make a post like that? Well, why? Because they weren't securing their device. And I really think that virtually all of these are going to be pretty easy for you. I think you would have come up with these if you could have thought about it. Like enabling that screen lock. If that had happened in the green room, then their devices wouldn't have been hacked. Don't root your device. Yes, root your hacking device. Root that. But your day-to-day device, don't root that. You want to make sure that you're protected. Download apps only from the official Android market. Okay, yeah. Here's another thing I'd like you to look up. Open up a like DuckDuckGo or some search engine and say top Android stores, or go to an LLM like Copilot and say, what are the top Android app stores? Or say, give me an exhaustive list of Android app stores. And you'll see that there's at least a good 20, maybe the first 10 of them actually being pretty popular. And so there's more than just a Play Store. There's a lot. In fact, there are apps that are, or app stores, I should say, that are particularly created for rooted Androids. Keep your device updated with the latest antivirus. Okay, I need to talk about this. You need antivirus on your Android. Don't walk around anymore past today without putting antivirus on your Android. Now, if you're in the United States of America right now, you cannot put Kaspersky antivirus on your phone because it has been banished. It can't be used in the United States. But you might outside the US, and there are plenty of others like Avast and others. So over here, do not directly download APK files. Now, if it's your hacker phone, you might just want to go ahead and download APK files. What I'll say though, is even if it's your hacker phone or if it's your regular phone, if you go to download an APK file, make sure and scan the APK to make sure it's not malware. Regularly update the OS. And if you get an update for your OS, make sure and apply it. Use free Protect Your Android apps for passwords, etc. Anything you can do for encryption down here, or for password protection over here, using 2FA, MFA, whatever it is you can do to lock down that device, use it. Another thing that we can do is to do Find My Device. And I used this just the other day. I was getting, I think it was early morning. Yeah, the sun wasn't quite up. It was still kind of dim. I had low lights in my home office. And then I needed to go and I couldn't find my phone. It's like, where is that thing? I don't know where it is. And so finally I went to a Google page and I typed in, where's my phone? And it took me to this, where you find your device. And when I opened the page, it made my phone buzz. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I was watching a video and I had the phone like sitting up right against, I have a flight controller. I like flight. I like to, when I was younger, I used to fly Cessnas and so on. But it's a black box and my phone is black and they're blended in. But when I heard it buzz, all that came back to me. That's really nice. I've had my phone, I remember about 10 years ago, left it at a grocery store and very busy and didn't realize it was there. Found it using that. So these are nice to have. So you can do notifications, etc. Find my phone, where's my Droid, etc., etc. So you can use tools to help make sure you keep track of that little device. Also, if your whole family is on Android, sounds like it's a drug. My whole family is on Android. If your whole family is on Android, you can like track your kids' devices and so on and help them find them. So it's actually pretty convenient. The next one we have is QuickSee. This is AppShield. What it is, it's a vulnerability scanner. So you can find information about your Android. Vulnerabilities, you can see here we have some red flagged areas down here. There's Android exploits. Immuniweb, this is one that comes up over and over again in this class. Very comprehensive pen testing tools for Android. And if Vulners comes up a few times in this class also. So we can scan the Android for issues. All right, so I was talking about making sure that if you download an APK, that APK is not going to be damaging. A couple of them, one is called a MobSF, and this will help you scan that APK, making sure it's not infected. Another one we have is 6.0 online APK scanner to make sure those APKs are not infected. To me, these are very important. You know why? Because periodically on my production phone, the one I use all the time, periodically I will find, download, and make use of an APK. This is an external file. This is how you install apps on an Android. And so these are very convenient to scan the APK and make sure you're not uploading, or I should say downloading doom into your Android. Objective number 3. Here we're going to explain various iPhone exploits and attacks. With iPhone, it is another amazing piece of technology. Remember that day when Steve Jobs came out and presented the iPhone, and it was a revolution in the use of mobile computing. It's really interesting because phones, we call them phones, but think about your phone. What percentage of the time are you actually using it to make phone calls? It's not really a phone. It's a mobile computation device that's, in many cases, some people have phones that are more powerful than their laptops. So it has the Cocoa application level. You can go use the app kit to do dev on it, access through media, a variety of core services down to the core OS and the kernel level. It's a very well put together architecture that has served Apple well for many years. And like I said, this will eventually be expanding to include AI elements. This is what I am supposing these days. One of the things that you can do with an iPhone is to jailbreak it. Jailbreaking an iPhone is a little bit, well, there are a lot more variables, I should say, than rooting an Android device. So one of the things that you want to keep in mind is when you do that kernel patch to jailbreak your iPhone, you may void the warranty. You're going to remove the sandbox. And you can cause quite a lot of other issues like poor performance. Someone can download malware into your device. In fact, if you just get it wrong, you can end up bricking your device. And so it's very important to make sure you get it right, or maybe just don't do it. And the reason I say that is because most of the things you need are going to be available, and it's much more convenient and useful to root an Android because of all the other stuff that's available for it than it is to jailbreak an iPhone, although there are some good reasons to jailbreak an iPhone. The three outcomes of jailbreaking, the types of jailbreaking. One is the userland exploit. What this one does is you get user level access, but not iBoot. So iBoot is that low level boot ROM access that most people are looking for when they jailbreak a phone. The iBoot exploit gives you both user level and iBoot, and so does the boot ROM exploit, user level access and iBoot level access. So a lot of people are going to either go for the boot ROM or the iBoot exploit. And again, that's going to depend on your phone. So with jailbreaking, there are also 4 different types of jailbreaking, and what they involve is what you need to do to stay jailbroken. So in other words, if you use untethered jailbreaking, you turn the device off, you turn it back on, it'll start up, the kernel will be still patched. In other words, you will stay jailbroken even after you reboot it. This is the best jailbreaking situation that you could be in terms of letting you have access to a jailbroken device. The rest of these involve using another device to keep you jailbroken. So semi-tethered. So what happens, you turn the device back off and back on, it will completely start up and it will no longer have a patched kernel. It'll still be usable for normal functions, but it's no longer jailbroken. And then so what you'll do is you have to tethered to your MacBook or whatever, re-jailbreak it essentially every time. So that's semi-tethered. Tethered, what will happen is it starts up on its own. It will no longer have a patched kernel. We saw the same thing here. The device will completely start up over here too, no longer have a patched kernel, and it may get stuck. Oh, so tethered, it may get stuck in a partially started state for it to completely start up with a patched kernel. It has to be re-jailbroken using the boot tethered feature that you'll find in some jailbreaking apps. And the last one is semi-untethered, similar to semi-tethered, and when it reboots, the kernel is not patched, but the kernel can still be patched without a computer. So that's why we say untethered. So it's without a computer. There's an app that you install on the phone to make this happen. Some of the jailbreaking apps are Hexa Plus. This is one of them. It walks you through the steps to jailbreak with Hexa Plus. Hexa Plus still works fairly well for jailbreaking, but make sure you check and make sure it can jailbreak your iOS version. There are others here that, especially Cydia, and Cilio, there are a few others that are very good for this. Once you have jailbroken your iPhone, you can do other things. Like, for instance, you can run Spies. What Spies is you hack SMSs. You can do get call logs, chats, GPS, compatible with iOSs. You can hack a target device. You can use invisible mode. Also, by the way, any of these tools and any of these, the malware they're going to look at are really going to apply a lot to a hacked iPhone, a lot more than to an unjailbroken. So a jailbroken iPhone versus an unjailbroken iPhone. We also have another attack. This one's called trust jacking. So a couple of things happen here. Number one, normally you use a computer, like for instance with iTunes on it or other utilities, and you set that up with your iOS, your iPhone. And in this case, there's somebody who has hacked this computer. And so next time you associate with this computer, you trust it, but it's been taken over by the attacker already. so they can do all kinds of stuff with trust checking. The next thing we use is the C-shell framework. The C-shell framework is one of the post-exploitation frameworks out there to help with remote control, extracting information, stuff like that. And so what you do is you run a command, and what you want to do is patch an IPA file, and then you give it the IP address and port number, and it says IPA patch, and then you give it the information, and eventually you should be able to, if it's successful, run a command to access web browsing history and interact with the phone in many different ways. Another one would be maybe analyzing and manipulating iOS applications. This one's called Ccrypt, and it's a nice little tool that you can use at runtime to exploit vulnerabilities that might already be in the code at the JavaScript level. If you look at iPhone, Apple stuff, it makes a lot of uses of Objective-C and Objective-C++. And that's what they're taking advantage of, those fundamental languages. And then we can use stuff like method swizzling, authentication bypass. Oh, and a big one you'll see with a lot of hacks against Apple stuff, specifically iPhones and tablets, is jailbreak detection bypass. Because a lot of hacks will actually jailbreak the iPhone, but if your iPhone is protected, they'll say, alert, alert, someone has jailbroken me. But in this case, we want to bypass that detection. So we mentioned method swizzling over there. It's also known as monkey patching. It's a technique that you modify methods that are already on the phone. What is a method? A method is a runtime functionality that allows you to invoke a function. It's longer explanation than that. But because of that, you can add new functionality. And this is while the app is running it. So at runtime, and again, using Objective-C, so you can switch the method functionality from a specific functionality that you used to have to the hacker functionality. And again, look at what we're doing. We're doing authentication bypass, detection, jailbreak detection bypass, and others we can do with monkey patching or method swizzling. Over here we have something that's used to extract secrets. In this case, it's called keychain dumper. And so we have like an encrypted storage system. We have keychains, passwords, secrets, right? Certificates, encryption keys, and keychain dumper does that. You can't actually see what keychain dumper does here. You have to go check it out on GitHub to see how that looks, because it's kind of a very small print here. But another one would be analyzing the iOS application. And it's a really cool tool. You can see the little iconography here, objection. And so this is method hooking. We talked a little bit about how hooking works in one of the previous modules, but this isn't for hooking functions, it's for hooking methods to bypass SSL, pinning, jailbreak detection, etc. Again, constant theme for a lot of these hacks is bypassing jailbreak detection. So what we want to do, take our Android device and understand the architecture, uncover vulnerabilities, find those weaknesses, and exploit them. So one of the things we can do is access the device shell through OpenSSH. All you have to do is SSH to the device. We can list installed apps with Frida. We can do network sniffing and find IP addresses, etc. And we can use same that we saw with Android and find a list of connections and processes and so on, more with Frida and so on. So lots of commands that you can use to get information out of the iPhone. And then there is iPhone malware. The easiest way to get infected with iPhone malware is to jailbreak your iPhone. And then the fun can begin. So anyway, this is one called Gold Pickaxe. It's a Trojan, one that'll kind of entice you to scan your face, get ID information. It asks them to install a kind of a masked form of MDM. What's a masked form of MDM? It's like a mobile device management, but you can't see it. It kind of disappears into the phone. And so that way they can have back-end access to your phone. So that's a pretty bad one, gold pickaxe. And the reason it's called gold, by the way, is because it gives you everything. Gold pickaxe. But there are others that are very useful, especially on a rooted iOS or an unprotected iOS, Spectral Blur and Light Spy and many others. There are iOS hacking tools, and probably the best enterprise security company that makes tools for hacking of various types, specifically encrypted systems, is Elcomsoft. They're worth a visit. They have a military, government, personal, and enterprise tools that you can use to, for instance, crack iOS devices. Enzyme, Network Analyzer, and Frida. We talked about Frida just a few moments ago. So these are some tools, hacking tools that you can use on your iPhone. So do you want to make sure nobody is going to be hacking your iPhone? Well, the first thing to realize is that your iPhone can be hacked. There are too many people with Apple devices that think their Apple device is fairly invulnerable. It's only the Android and the Windows device that can be hacked, not my Apple device. So the first thing is to disabuse yourself of the idea that because you have an iPhone, that it's not hackable. It is hackable. So here's what we do to defend that device. Number one, lock it. Number two, make sure you're careful with what you connect to. You're careful with what apps you use. You're careful with add-ons. You're careful with links or attachments. Making sure that you change any defaults, not jailbreaking your device. And hey, Apple invented this. Find My Phone. Configure it so you know how to wipe it if it gets lost or stolen. And make sure you have good jailbreak detection. And make sure that your OS is regularly updated so that you're not going to fall prey to a common iPhone attack. And one of the things that it doesn't mention here that is also extremely important is to make sure that you go to your Apple App Store and download and install antivirus on your device. So some of the security tools that you can download and install, one of them is Malwarebytes. It does a great job. I like their Android form of this too. Very, very good stuff. So you can go install that, run it on your iPhone. AVG, I've run that on my iPhone. I have I showed you my Android earlier, but I have an iPhone also. McAfee and Norton, of course, are going to be in that market. So why would you want to install some antivirus on your iPhone, even though they get hacked a lot less? Well, it's because your phone is hackable. Can you imagine this? Let's say that you spend a total of 5 minutes finding a good security tool for your iPhone, downloading it and installing it. And then a year and a half from now, when there's a giant 0-day that affects thousands of devices, it would have affected you, but you're running Malwarebytes. And Malwarebytes, let's say, I don't know if they do right now, but let's say by then they had a little deep learning or AI module that was scanning your phone. It found heuristically that there was some oddity about some communication that was happening, and so it blocked the communication, and your phone doesn't get hacked. That's what we want to happen. 5 minutes is all it takes. You should have antivirus on your iPhone. Also, we have device tracing tools. You can set them up. Shows you the step-by-step over here for Find My, and there's mSpy and Pray and Find My Phone, and many others out there. Also, for if you have teenagers, we often install tracking software and spy software on our teenagers' phones to protect them. There's a lot of that for both Android and iPhone. Objective number 4. So in objective number 4, what we're going to do is have a look at MDM, mobile device management, and discuss some of the concepts. So let's have a look at objective 4. So what is MDM? You have a device and you want to BYOD your device. You want to bring your own device to work. And what they're going to want to do is manage either the whole device, hopefully not, or the organization's stuff that's on that device. And so what you can do with it is over-the-air distribution of applications. So the company can update or install new apps on the phone. Enterprise-wide wipe policies, or enterprise-wide policies, I should say. Wiping is one of those. But enterprise-wide policies that have been established for your phones. MDM applies to Windows and tablets and computers and desktops and everything, right? So it really depends on what you purchase for it. It goes over any network over the internet, and you can control it from a centralized location. So let's say that I'm on my way to a city and get off in a layover somewhere, and I leave my device in the airport. I'm probably not going to see that device again. So I would let my company know to wipe that device, right? So that's something that is useful. Monitor, management, control, support. So management solutions, SalesFusion has a very good one. Very good for helping IT teams do just that. Microsoft Intune is actually pretty good. Have you heard of Microsoft Intune? It's developed specifically for MDM. It's also great for integrating into your normal patching and so on that you do in your organization. AppTech 360 and many others are very good for managing those mobile devices. So when you have BYOD in your company, there are stuff you need to do. Because what happens is it's the employee's device. It's nice because I can be comfortable with the device. I can have the latest device. My company might want to give me an iPhone 6. If they want to give me an iPhone 6, I might say, you know what? I think I'll go ahead and buy my own phone, right? But what if I decide to upgrade the phone or give it away or let somebody else use it? How is that confidential data going to be protected on that phone? How is it going to be when I dispose of that phone? What if I just get tired of it and just literally chuck it in the trash and then go get another one? How is my company's information and software going to be protected? So when we think of this, our policy, we have to decide how many and what types of devices that we want to support at the company level. And remember, it's going to have the employees' data and the organization's data mixed. And what happens if it gets stolen? What if the employee is not trained well to defend their phone? And what if they can bypass network policies on that phone because of some of these reasons? So we have to be very careful with BYOD. So what we do with BYOD, we have two levels of guidelines. One is for the administrator, so the person who's administering the policy at the operations side of things, making sure that we have multi-layer protection, making sure we educate employees. This has to happen continually. Remember, Human OS 1.0, not only should you never drive with it unpatched, but we also have to keep repatching it over and over again, don't we? I mean, man, make it clear who owns the apps. So if it is, let's say you're running iTunes and you're just running Microsoft apps, you have to make sure that the company is the one that owns those and the data associated with that, and make sure everybody knows. Make it clear which apps will be allowed or banned. And then controlling those access, making sure it doesn't get rooted, making sure you authenticate sessions. There's a timeout policy for apps and data and for the UIs that the company wants to be responsible for. And for the employee, encrypt, make sure you have that clear separation, make sure you follow the company policy, update that OS, and there should be DLP. DLP is helpful when, let's say that I'm an employee and I find an email that looks really interesting and I want to forward it, but it gets stopped because data loss prevention. There's something in an email that the organization considers private. Strong passcode, password for apps, all those things are very important for the employee. Objective number 5, what we're going to do over here is have a look at some mobile security guidelines and some mobile security tools. Let's make it happen. All right, so OWASP, top 10 mobile risks and solutions. This is actually pretty cool because it has both the risk and the solution. I'm not going to go through each one of these. You get a chance, you can have a look, but let's look at a few. Improper credential usage. Well, hey, avoid using hard-coded credentials. You never want hard-coded credentials. This is like when there's a credential that's that will never change and it's stored somewhere. It's hard-coded. So we want to encrypt, right? So authorization, let's see, insecure communication, right? Insecure communication. Talking about using digital signatures from a trusted provider, valid certificates, security misconfiguration. Configure it correctly. So refer to the hard-coded default credentials, refrain from using those, disable debugging features, stuff like that. So for each one of these, we have solutions. It's a good thing to look through and make sure you understand. And then for a general guideline, a standpoint for mobile platform security. Oh, hey, why do we have to have number 1? I think I've just been busted. Do not load too many applications and avoid auto upload for photos. So that whole too many applications, I'm always testing some app on my phone to see how it works and if it's cool or not. But yeah, auto upload of photos to social networks. So while you're traveling, while you're sleeping, whatever, it keeps on loading stuff to Facebook or whatever. Make sure you assess applications and your architecture, maintain a good secure configuration and management, install applications from trusted stores. Don't just go find a bunch of APKs randomly. Be very careful to scan them if you have to get them. Wipe or delete the data when exposing the device. There's a lot of times when data gets exposed for devices that are resold. If you're not using Wi-Fi, if you're not using GPS, if you're not using Bluetooth, turn that stuff off because that's just yet another vector. And then make sure that you don't connect 2 separate networks. So like for instance, I was talking about that copier document manager that somebody bought for the office, and you connect to that and that connects into your network. These are the types of things we want to be careful to avoid. Using a passcode, updating your apps, updating your OS, don't root or jailbreak. So most of these are things we've kind of already seen, and harden the browser permissions. Make sure you keep everything up to date. Make sure you back stuff up. That's so important. And both Apple and Alphabet have really, really good ways for you to be able to do that. All right, so what about the administrator? What we want to do first of all and foremost of all is make sure that you have an enterprise policy, publish it, take security measures from the data center all the way through to your mobile devices, making sure you're using those measures like antivirus, session timeouts, domain password. Are you going to cache that? I wouldn't want you to do that. Don't, be careful about caching, making sure you understand how gateways are used and for access. And that's going to cover all these at the bottom, your RSA keys, authentication, whether you're doing domain only. How are you going to allow that gateway access? And then make sure you take SMS phishing countermeasures. This is mainly training employees, but there are also security measures you can take on the phone or at the app level for that. Like for instance, block text from the internet. You can do that from the provider. And then we have for Android and iOS, for Keystore and for Keychain, some recommendations. So in other words, look at this. Employee authentication mechanisms. What are we going to do for that? Authentication? We're going to do patterns. Oh, and pins. While we're talking about that, I want you to do another internet lookup for me. Do a lookup on the top most common patterns and pins. The top most common patterns and pins for unlocking a device or something like that. When you do a little bit of research, it's not necessarily going to be the top hit that comes up, but there are patterns that people use over and over again. Just like the most common passwords, there are common patterns. And there are pins that people use over and over again. And it's not just stuff like 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a lot of pin patterns that people use a lot. So look those up and then make sure you never use those. So whenever you're establishing a pin, go beyond what pops into your mind. So if you think I'm going to do 7799, then you know what? I better put something else in there and do 3, 4. So maybe you can go beyond 4 digits or something like that. So it's very important to know what the most common are and avoid those, because when I'm hacking a phone, I try the most common ones first. And a lot of times they work. The next thing is have hardware, Android key store for data and use encryption, authorization, making sure that the keys are stored in the server and can be accessed after proper authentication. That's on the Android. On the iOS, again, same thing. Making sure you're using Touch ID or Face ID or passcodes or passwords. You want to make sure that you're safeguarding that keychain. And hardware backed, AES-256, ACLs, and store only small chunks of data directly on the keychain, and you want to specify access control flags to authenticate the key. So these are things you want to do on the iOS side. And then we want to look at the applications that we're allowing to be used on our devices. So if you are an organization and whenever you send out a mobile device, you have a set of applications that you're using, you want to make sure that you have reverse engineered those applications. What do I mean by that? Well, we want to break it down to its low-level functionality and determine how this app works, analyzing, extracting the source code. We want to read and understand that source code, look for vulnerabilities, do a malware analysis, and then what this will do is help us with our security analysis, helping us with black box testing and assessing the application itself. Tools that you might find helpful. SciHunt Mobile. SciHunt, by the way, makes other stuff, not just mobile, but they have a very good mobile tool for your mobile applications. It can find up to 350 vulnerabilities and even more, 240 for iOS. Zimperium, hey, they're back with their Z3A. And so there are many tools that can help you with source code analysis. And we have reverse engineering tools. This is one of my favorites, APK tool, that you can use to reverse engineer APKs. We also have this one, I like that one too a lot, the APK Studio Editor. And then we have repackaging tools. So you can check and see if the app that you are downloading has been repackaged. Like for instance, remember the Agent Smith attack I was talking about a little bit earlier? That often happens because of repackaging. And so AppDome, very good for that. FreeRASP and Andro, Compare, and others are very good to check for repackaged apps. And then anti-spyware, we have Avast. That's what I'm running on my Android. It does a great job. TotalAV, very good. AVG, Komodo, Norton, and Certo. So many good tools that you can run on your phone to secure it, making sure that it is less hackable. All right, so lastly, well, almost lastly, we have the mobile pen testing toolkit known as Immunoweb. It's actually really cool. We've talked about this before, Immunoweb products. This one is for iOS and Android. It's like a full pen test kit for both of them. Astra, Codified Security, and others are very good for pen testing your mobile phones. So you have an Android, you have an iOS-based phone, you have an iPhone, you have a tablet that runs any of these operating systems. You have employees or your company is responsible for securing them. It's very important to understand the sets of tools and the sets of attacks and the potential vulnerabilities. And that's what we have done for this section. Now, we have a couple of labs we're going to do. We don't have as many labs as we do in some of the larger modules, but they are exciting, and you can join me there. Otherwise, you can join me for the next module, and we'll see you there.